amongst themselves, especially those countries that already experienced certain level of industrialization before they became part of the southern countries, for example, Brazil and India. So those kinds of experience became an advantage that they could pass on to other countries.
To enlighten that point, Professor Khan, supports regarding educational system development and human material resources important in higher education area of South-South cooperation?
Yes, indeed. Actually, in light of what we just heard from Professor Kalu, he talked about capital. This is really human capital, if you will. But it has many important dimensions. Let me mention something that we did when we were, I was at Asian Development Bank. We tried to look at the educational requirements for growth of Asian developing countries. It was a fairly extensive study which I oversaw. And we found something very interesting. First of all, countries or economies like Taiwan and Korea, they had emphasized the creation of educational infrastructure, including higher educational infrastructure. So a lot of knowledge and expertise already exists in Asia, in these countries. And surprisingly, India, which is a poorer country in terms of per capita income, also emphasized higher education, what is technically called tertiary education. And we found that some of the rapidly growing economies in Southeast Asia, on the contrary, had a huge deficit in higher education, in tertiary education. So you can see that here in Asia, there is a need for building higher educational infrastructure through mutual cooperation. And we also have this already established reservoir of knowledge and experience and capacity. So we have to, in a way, transfer capacity from those who have built it and have experience building it, like Korea, Taiwan, India, to those who actually can use it in a productive way. And there we need to mobilize both physical capital, because you do need to build things, buildings and educational equipment, scientific labs, etc. But we also need to mobilize human resources, and this is crucial, I think. And this is something that I would like to see more of. And Korea, I think, actually can be a leader in this region, in this particular area, among other things.
So you're saying that you just cannot just give capital to educate? No. Back to Professor Kalu. We're talking about education. What are some expected impacts from supporting higher education?
Let me contextualize my response on Africa. Across sub-Saharan Africa, many of the primary schools, secondary schools are dilapidated. I mean, they are in shambles. The tertiary institutions are not functioning at full capacity. Most of the highly educated, especially technically educated individuals who remain in the continent do not have the laboratory, the type of science and technology equipment that you need in the lab to conduct research and to engage in innovative research and development activities. So in this regard, there is education deficiency, especially in 2010, 2011. For example, you have approximately 9% of all university students declaring their majors in science and technology. Only 9%. That is very insignificant in the larger scheme of things, because it filters then down to secondary and primary schools in terms of production of teachers who can teach, to raise the standard, to raise the thinking and creative level of the citizens. It directly impacts the capacity of African countries to transition from poverty to any kind of recognizable economic independence. The point can be illustrated by the ongoing famine and crisis, drought in the Horn of Africa, in the Sahel. We see the pictures. These are human preventable catastrophes, but it demands education. So in this context, South-South cooperation could indeed be a significant angle to helping the African countries in terms of the human capital, the technological know-how, and the sharing of their expertise in building back up the basic research, teaching, laboratory across the subcontinent.
Back to Professor Khan. How should the targets for educational support be selected? Or are the targets decided based on the demand of the supporting nations? What are the procedures and scales of educational support?
A very good question and a crucial one because without reasonable targets, we really will not know where we should focus our vision, to use Professor Kalu's excellent characterization. To imagine something different, we have to know where we are and where we really would like to be on the basis of analysis and good information. Now, going back to what I said initially, we need to have a process that is consultative and that has to be based on sound accounting. And by accounting, I mean a kind of social accounting and social accountability and transparency. These are important principles. But in terms of being able to do it, you also are going to need a certain level of expertise in specific areas. And there, I believe that international organizations can play a major role as long as they're perceived as being impartial and caring about the South. On top of that, I would also add that many southern countries have expatriates who, for one reason or another, are working in international organizations, in developed countries, North America, Europe, Asia, Australia. It is really important to work together with donors